don't know if anyone will ever believe what happened to me last December. I barely believe it myself, and I've lived every second of it. But I'm writing it all down now, every detail, every sound, every shadow, because the thing I heard last Christmas Eve, it's coming back. And I need someone to know the truth before it reaches me again. This all started when I returned to my hometown of Brindle Hollow for the holidays. I'd been gone 10 years, long enough to forget most of the old stories, the whispered warnings, the strange local legends. Long enough to tell myself none of it could have ever been real. But as soon as I pulled into the long, snow-choked driveway of my childhood home, memories started trickling back like melting ice. The old Christmas Eve curfew, the strange bells in the woods, and the carolers that everyone pretended not to see. It was supposed to be a simple visit. A week at home. Some wine, some food, my mother fussing over me, and then back to the city. But I only survived 3 nights. The first night wasn't too strange. Just the unsettling quiet that always settles over a small, snow-blanketed town. The roads were empty by 6, not because of weather but tradition. Brindle Hollow always shut down early in December. There were no late-night bars, no holiday festivals, no Christmas markets. The place felt frozen in more ways than one. My mom was vague, like always, when I asked about it. People keep to themselves this time of year, she said, stirring a pot on the stove. The season stirs up old things. Old things, I repeated, like folklore. She didn't answer, just tightened her grip on the wooden spoon until her knuckles turned white. Later that night, when I went to bring in a stack of firewood from outside, I saw something strange. Footprints. Not fresh, but not fully snowed over either. Deep, narrow bootprints leading down the driveway, across the road, and toward the dark tree line behind our house. I called inside to Mom. Someone was here. She joined me at the door, but when she saw the prints, her face went pale. "Close the door," she said quietly. "What? Why?" "Just close it." She shut the bolt herself, then the chain, then the deadlock. Then she pulled the curtains tight. "Mom," I laughed, "it's probably a kid or something. No child here would walk this road after sundown," she said. "What are you talking about?" She placed a hand on my arm. "Let's not discuss this tonight." Her voice trembled just a little. The bells. The second night was when the bells started. I woke up around 2:30 a.m. to the faint sound of metal chimes drifting through the cold. Not soft, festive jingle bells, but long, slow notes that sounded like rusted iron being struck gently together. I sat up in bed. The sound drifted through the woods, distant but unmistakable. 3 notes. Pause. 3 notes. Pause. 3 notes. Like a signal, I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. The yard was empty except for swirling snow. The woods were a black wall beyond the fence line. But as I listened, I realized something. The bells weren't ringing from one spot. They were moving, coming closer. I backed away from the glass. My heart hammered as the notes grew louder, still slow, still rhythmic, but impossibly precise. No wind, no staggered footsteps, no crunching in the snow. Just the bells. 3 notes. Pause. 3 notes. Pause. Then silence. Complete, suffocating silence. I stood in the middle of my childhood bedroom, breathing hard, waiting for something, anything, to break the quiet. And then I heard shuffling in the snow directly below my window. Not footsteps, more like something dragging itself. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. My mother's warning. At breakfast, I told my mom everything. She didn't look surprised. "Did you lock your window last night?" she asked. "I think so." "You need to be sure," she said sharply. "Always. They look for the warm air. They listen for breath." "Who?" I demanded. "Mom, what is going on?" She hesitated a long time before answering. "We've always had visitors in the winter," she whispered. "Since before I was even born. They come from the woods after the first heavy snow. They walk the roads and the yards, and they sing with their bells." "Carolers," I said, trying to force a smile. But she didn't smile back. "They aren't people anymore." My blood went cold. "Then what are they?" She shook her head. "We don't know. We just keep the lights low, the windows locked, and we don't acknowledge them if we hear them. That's why everyone stays inside." I wanted to argue, to tell her she sounded insane, but the bells had been real. The dragging sound had been real. "What happens if you do acknowledge them?" I asked quietly. My mother didn't answer. Christmas Eve. By Christmas Eve, the atmosphere in town felt tense, tightly wound like an old music box about to snap. Windows were shuttered, doors triple locked. Not a single Christmas decoration hung outside, not one wreath, not one string of lights. In a town obsessed with avoiding attention, nothing festive was allowed outdoors. That night, around 11, my mother announced she was going to bed early. "You should too," she urged. But I wasn't tired, not even close. My skin buzzed with anxiety. I needed answers. Around midnight, I slipped on my coat and boots. I didn't plan on going far, just down the driveway to look around. Maybe I'd prove to myself that everything was normal, that we were just paranoid. As soon as I stepped outside, icy air slapped me across the face. The snow was inches deep, untouched except for a few faint lines, like something had been dragged through it again. I aimed a flashlight at the tree line. The beam flickered, then died. I smacked it. Nothing. The entire woods felt darker than should have been possible. I turned to head back inside. 3 notes rang through the trees. Slow, metallic, closer than before. I froze. The bells sounded again. This time, they were accompanied by something else. A voice, soft, breathy, almost like a whisper trying to mimic a melody. Who, who, My stomach dropped. It wasn't singing. It was calling. I backed toward the house, keeping my eyes on the woods. But the darkness seemed to shift, to ripple, to pulse. Then I heard footsteps emerging from the tree line. Slow, deliberate crunches in the snow, followed by more dragging. And then shapes appeared. 4 of them. They stepped or dragged themselves into the faint moonlight. Their bodies were tall, impossibly thin beneath tattered winter coats that looked decades old. Their faces were hidden beneath scarves or hoods, but I could see pale, frost-bitten skin, and what looked like frozen tears streaked down their cheeks. Each one held a cluster of iron bells tied to skeletal fingers. They stopped at the edge of the yard and stared at me. No blinking, no breathing, no sound, until one tilted its head slowly, too slowly, like its neck was stiff or broken, and raised the bells. 3 notes, ringing across the snow, an invitation or a demand. I stumbled backward, nearly falling, and the creature nearest me stepped forward, dragging one leg as though it wasn't fully attached. I bolted for the door. Behind me, I heard the bells erupt into frantic jingling, no longer slow, no longer rhythmic, like they were excited, hungry. I threw myself against the door, slamming it shut and locking it with shaking hands. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, tap, 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 bare, frozen fingers began knocking gently against the front door. Tap, tap, tap. The bells jingled softly right outside. Something brushed against the doorframe, scraping like brittle branches. I backed away slowly until I hit the stairs. My mother appeared at the top. "You went outside," she said, voice breaking. I didn't mean to. "Stay away from the windows," she whispered. "No matter what you hear." Her eyes were wet. She looked terrified. Downstairs, the knock turned into a long, slow scratch across the wood. The bells fell silent. Then a voice, not human, not even close, whispered through the crack beneath the door. "Kuwald, let us in." My mother grabbed my arm and pulled me upstairs. "We can't let them know we hear them," she said. "If they know we hear them, they'll never leave." "But they followed me," I said. "Why me?" She hesitated, just a moment too long. "Because you looked at them. The night they came inside. We sat in my old bedroom together, silent and tense. I could hear them moving outside. Their bells rang sporadically, sometimes close, sometimes distant, as though dozens were circling the house. Around 3 a.m., the tapping moved to my window. Then the scratching. I held my breath as a long, pale hand pressed against the glass. Then another. Then a face leaned close, skin cracked and blue, eyes sunken deep into frozen sockets. It breathed against the window, fogging the glass. It was watching me sleep, except I wasn't asleep. My mother clamped her hand over my mouth before I could make a sound. The creature's head twitched, then twisted, then tilted in an impossible angle, as it pressed a blackened ear against the window pane, listening, listening for breath, listening for life. A long, thin tongue slid out and licked the frost off the window. I thought I was going to faint. It stayed there for almost an hour before slowly withdrawing back into the darkness. That should have been the end of it. But it was. Around dawn, when the bells finally grew distant, my mother fell asleep, sitting upright against the wall. I didn't. I went to the window, careful not to touch it, and looked outside. There were dozens of footprints around the house, and something else. 4 sets of footprints led into the yard, but only 3 led back out. The last one. For the next day, nothing happened. My mother insisted we keep everything locked. She kept glancing at the attic door as though expecting it to open on its own. That evening, I heard her whispering to someone on the phone, but her voice was trembling so badly I could barely make out any words except, "He looked at them. I told him not to go outside. One is still here." I stepped into the hallway, but she quickly hung up. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "No one," she said too fast. Then, as if realizing the lie wouldn't hold, she added, "We need to leave in the morning, before nightfall." I didn't argue, but around midnight, as I was lying awake, I heard something from the attic. A bell, just one note, soft, slow, close. I held my breath, listening. Another bell rang, then faint shuffling, then a voice, barely audible. "Cooled." I ran to my mother's room. It was empty. The bedsheets were torn off the mattress. The window was open. Snow had blown in, forming a thin layer across the floor. And on the windowsill, a cluster of iron bells. Still, motionless, waiting. I called out for her. No answer. Then something moved in the attic again. Heavy, purposeful, dragging. I backed away from the ladder, heart pounding. Every instinct screaming at me not to look. But I did. I looked straight up into the dark opening, and something was there. A face, dead, frozen, familiar. My mother's eyes stared down at me, but her jaw hung open too wide, her neck bent at an impossible angle. Bells dangled from her fingers. Her voice came out wrong, broken, stretched, cold. "Who, I ran. I don't remember leaving the house. I don't remember starting the car. I just remember driving blind through the snow, not stopping for anything, not looking back. I never saw my mother again. I never returned to Brindle Hollow. And I hoped I had escaped. This year, that was almost a year ago. Tonight, just after midnight, I heard something outside my apartment window. A soft, metallic jingle. 3 notes. Pause. 3 notes. Pause. 3 notes. My breath caught. I crawled to the window and pulled the curtain back a sliver. Down in the courtyard, half buried in snow, stood a figure wearing a tattered winter coat. Its head tilted up toward my window, though I couldn't see its face beneath the hood. In its hand, a cluster of iron bells. It raised them slowly. The bells chimed. Then another figure stepped out of the shadows, and another, 4 in total. They lifted their heads in perfect unison, and one of them was wearing my mother's coat. Their voices rose together in a broken, whispery chorus. Who, 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 they found me. I don't know how. I don't know why, but I hear them beneath my window now, and they're getting closer. If the bells ever stop ringing, then it means they've come inside.